In the Lone Star College system, dissection-based projects can be considered especially interesting. In Kingwood, Texas, the dedicated students who investigate these animals are members of an elite squad called the Rat Dissectors. This is their story.
Here at the school, we began to classify different organisms by the traits that they have. And with mammals, we can see that they are different because they have 3 inner air bones, mammary glands, differentiated teeth, and hair. With rodents specifically, we're looking for large incisors that are made for or adapted for gnawing on different foods. So let's turn to our scientists and see what they've found.
Great, so first we're going to look at the rat's integumentary system. This includes its fur, which it uses to stay warm, and we saw some adaptations that mammals first used maybe for when they burrowed and stuff. And then we're also looking at the rat's nipples, which are where their mammary glands are located. Then the rat's tail is actually covered by a reptile scale type skin, and that is something unique to rodents, rats especially. Now we're going to look at our rat's organ systems. We're going to start with digestive, and within that we're going to cover some of the endocrine system and a little bit of the excretory system.
Starting at the mouth, the rat chops up the food with his incisors and swallows it, goes through the mouth, and then the food will move in through the esophagus, which runs next to the trachea, and go through past the heart and past the liver into the stomach. These are the livers. As you can see, there's multiple lobes. We already kind of cut them out to show you quicker. The liver actually has large veins coming in and arteries coming in and out of it that connect directly to the heart. The liver is for secreting bile. Something unique about rats is that they do not have a gallbladder. The gallbladder is something that humans use to store their bile, but the rat does not have it. So the rat's bile goes directly from the liver into the bile duct, which goes to the duodenum. As the food goes into the stomach, and we look at the stomach, you can see that it is covered by, or it was covered by, a lot of fatty stuff that we removed, and inside of that fatty stuff is the pancreas. Pancreas actually secretes digestive enzymes into the stomach. Bile is not for digestive enzymes, although it does create a salt that helps with digesting of fats, but the pancreas is direct digestive enzymes. After the food is churned around in the stomach, it'll move into the small intestines. This is the small intestines right here, coming off of the stomach, and we kind of separated all of it to show you. Sometimes it broke, but as you can see, the small intestines is not named after the length of it. It's labeled after, it's named because of the diameter of it. The small intestines has a small diameter, the large intestine has a large diameter. So the continuation of the small intestines is right here, and it has kind of this webbed, veined sort of material, and that is the membrane that connects them. It consists of a lot of blood vessels. They both nourish the intestines with blood, and they receive the nutrients from the food that's being digested. So whenever we cut out all of the small intestines, that's what was connecting all of them together. Now, the small intestines goes into the cecum. The cecum is something that humans don't necessarily have. Humans have an appendix, which is a much smaller type of cecum, and it connects the small intestines to the large intestines. Then after the bile and food goes through the cecum and goes into the large intestines, which is this right here. And the large intestines is mainly used for more breakdown of the food, and it is large. You can see how it has these lumps. That's food, basically, and waste. And then it'll move into the rectum and out the anus of the rat. This is the spleen. It is kind of a banana shape. It is an organ found in almost all vertebrate animals. It mainly acts as a filter for purifying blood, removing microbes and worn out or damaged red blood cells. It is also an important organ for the immune system, producing white blood cells that fight infection and synthesize antibodies. Below the stomach, you'll find the kidney, which is connected directly to the bloodstream. The kidney is surrounded by fat and the adrenal gland for protection. The adrenal gland creates adrenaline straight into the blood system. Inside of the kidney, it has a very fine network of veins and arteries that filter the blood constantly and remove waste. This is the other kidney on the rat's left side. It connects to the ureter, which drains the urine, to the bladder. The bladder is back here, and the ureter would connect all the way to the bladder. Then the bladder would, of course, it would connect to the urethra, and the urethra would go all the way out to the vagina. So this is the uterus. There are two sides, so this is one uteri. We do have a pregnant rat, and so she has some developing embryos, and well, no more developing embryos. The ovaries are at the very tip or the end of the uterus, both of them. There's one on each, and they're very small, and those form the eggs. And then on each side, if you had a male rat, they would have two seminal vesicles, and those were responsible for mixing the sperm with the urine. And then they would have two testicles. They'd be very large. You could tell that it was a male by the testicles. And those are what creates the sperm by meiosis. And then it would have a penis that would deposit the sperm into the female through sexual reproduction. And it would come in through the uterus and deposit them into the uterus. And that's where the sperm would go to create babies.
Their method of reproduction is internal fertilization, and they are viviparous.
Okay, so here we have our thoracic cavity. We're going to start up here with the mouth, where the nose, where the rat is going to breathe. The air is going to travel down the trachea and into the bronchi. You can't see the bronchi because they're small, but it's the beginning branching of the lungs. And then here we have our right side of the lungs, and then here we have our left portion of the lungs. The right part of the lungs is bigger because the heart has to fit into the left. Also, here we have the diaphragm. It's just a muscle that is going to act like a vacuum. So when it is pulled down like this, the lungs will bring air in, and that is inhalation. And then whenever the muscle is going up here like this, it pushes the air out, and that's exhalation. Also, the rib cage, you can kind of see the remnants here of what's left, what hasn't been cut open, and those will expand and contract, and the muscles in between each rib will allow that to happen. Okay, and here we have the heart. So blood, deoxygenated blood is going to flow up in through the inferior vena cava right here and through the superior vena cava. We can't really see it right now, but it's actually up here, and that's all going to be deoxygenated blood. It is going to travel through the heart and into the pulmonary veins. It is going to take the blood to the lungs to become oxygenated, and then it is going to travel from the lungs through the pulmonary arteries to the heart, into the left atrium. And so whenever it travels through the lungs, it becomes oxygenated. And then it goes from the left atrium to the left ventricle and up through the aorta to the rest of the body. Okay, so here we have the heart. We're going to go into a little bit more detail on it. Here's all the external features. You can see all the blood vessels coming off of it. So when we open it up, if I can open it up, we see our superior vena cava here. You can't see our inferior vena cava, but it's back here. And so this is where the blood is going to come into the heart. So here's our right atria, and it's going to go into the right atria, through the valve, into the right ventricle, and up into the pulmonary artery. The pulmonary artery is going to take the deoxygenated blood to the lungs. It's going to be oxygenated there with the alveoli and then come back through the pulmonary veins. It's going to go in right here and into the left atrium through this valve into the left ventricle and up through the aorta to the rest of the body. Okay, so here we have Peggy's head, and up here is going to be her olfactory bulbs. You can't see them, they're still encased in the skull. We were not able to open it up that far, but they're up there, and they're going to look like this here. And what that does is it determines how well an animal can smell. It has, I mean, that's what it is. That's what it does. Okay, so here we have the cerebrum, and it's just this portion right here, and it's this portion here on the model. And that is going to have to do with complex thought and processing. Here we have the cerebellum, and that's going to have to do with like depth perception and balance, and so that's going to be this pink part here. If you look closely, you can see the folds right here. They're there, I promise. I don't know if you can see it on the video, but I mean, they exist. And then we'll move on to the parts of the brain that you can't see. So this blue part here is going to be the optic bulbs, or optic lobes, and that has to do with sight. And then this part down here and right here is going to be the autonomic portion of the brain. So that's going to control breathing, digestion, your heartbeat, blood flow, etc.
Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you all enjoyed it and have a great time studying.